This is CNN Breaking News.
And we begin this hour with breaking news. Another white-knuckle day is already unfolding up on Wall Street. Right now, the Dow is down about 900 points, a little bit more than 900 points. Fear of a global recession. Those fears are alarming investors here in the United States and indeed around the world, even as President Trump's advisors try to downplay the growing concerns.
There's no escaping the fact that business leaders are really losing confidence, given the fact that there doesn't appear to be any reversal happening here on negotiations. President Trump telling American businesses instead to hang tough. How can businesses plan when they don't really know where all of this is going to land?
Yeah, Christina, that is the big problem. They don't know what the cost of their goods is going to be, and so they don't know right now, should they be hiring workers or should they be firing them? Should they be retreating or should they be expanding? I mean, it just creates mass confusion. Now, you look at the markets right here. The Dow is up by almost 1,000 points, 2.5%. The S&P 500 down by 2%. Earlier, the S&P did enter bear market territory, which signals a 20% decline from a previous high. Now, the S&P is trading just above that. The key number to watch is 49.15. If the S&P closes below 49.15, then this would be the second fastest bear market in history, second only to COVID in 2020. Of course, then it was a deadly virus. Now it's a self-inflicted trade war. And the big fear is that, this is going to cause prices to go up, it's going to cause global trade to grind to a halt, and potentially even an economic downturn. We are hearing from more business leaders, some of whom have been quiet about tariffs recently. Some of them are speaking out. JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon, he said in his annual shareholder letter that, tariffs, they could increase inflation. He said whether or not the menu of tariffs causes a recession remains in question, but it will slow down growth. America first is fine as long as it doesn't end up being America alone. And some are even invoking Smoot-Hawley, the 1930 law passed by the U.S. Congress that sent tariffs skyrocketing and made the Great Depression even worse than it had to be. Take a listen to former St. Louis Fed President Jim Bullard on CNBC this morning.
This has dramatically raised the risk of a Smoot-Hawley type outcome. So Smoot-Hawley was 1930. Other countries retaliated, global trade collapsed, and the Great Depression was on. So I think that's really what has people worried about this. It doesn't have to work out that way.
Some very strong words there from a former Federal Reserve official. There's others that are speaking out too. Bill Ackman, the billionaire hedge fund CEO who endorsed Trump for this election, he's basically pleading with the president to hit the pause button on this trade war. And he said, if not, we're heading for a self-induced economic nuclear winter, and we should start hunkering down. Also, just want to look at things historically to just sort of show you how bad the market has been lately. So the S&P 500 entering today, this does not even count today's losses. Entering today, the S&P 500 is off to its worst start to any presidential term in modern history since the S&P launched in the 1950s. It's just staggering, and you can see how much lower the market is under Trump 2.0 than it was at this point under Trump 1.0. So we got to listen. We have to wait and see whether or not the president's going to heed these warnings from CEOs and investors and economists. He's clearly shown that he's more willing to stomach economic and financial pain than he was during his first term. Still, though, these losses have got to get the attention of the White House, and we're just going to have to wait and see whether or not the president's willing to change course at all on tariffs.
Let's bring in economics and public policy professor Justin Wolfers right now. He's from the University of Michigan. He's joining us from Ann Arbor right now. Justin, what's the significance of entering bear market territory?
I think it's partly people are worried about their 401ks, and I've had all sorts of retirees reach out to me terrified about what all of this means. But I think more importantly, it's the market's judgment on the whole Trump tariff agenda. According to Trump's theory of the case, what he's trying to do is make American business outperform. That putting tariffs on will help American business, and then there'll be flow-on effects from there. But what you see here is the market saying, no, we think that the value of American businesses is falling and fallen quite dramatically as a result of these tariffs. This is the tariffs. This is Wall Street screaming at the White House, if this is help, we don't want your help. Please stop now.
Well, we just heard from Melania Trina at the White House talking about how the White House is defending this. Here's the president's advisors downplaying the growing concerns here of a recession.
The market will find a bottom. It will be soon. And from there, we're going to have a bullish boom.
There doesn't have to be a recession. Who knows how the market is going to react in a day, in a week.
You need to reset the power of the United States of America and reset it against all our allies and our enemies alike.
It's a strategy to create a golden age in America for the American worker. That's his strategy.
So, Justin, what is your take on their arguments?
Look, I think let me explain why it is I think markets hate this so much. Essentially, Trump grew up in an era where there was quite substantial tariffs on American businesses. And so some of his complaints would have been totally reasonable in 1960. It turns out today that very few countries, or a week ago, I should say, actually have substantial tariffs on the United States at all. So what we have is, if we, quote, win this trade war, we might be able to get, say, Vietnam to eliminate all of its tariffs. Right now, Vietnam actually charges, on average, only a 1.1% tariff rate. And so if we win, we get a tiny reduction in tariffs. Now, in the meantime, what's happening is China has put a 34% tariff rate on the United States. So it's incredibly asymmetric. The stakes, if we win, are very small. The stakes that we're putting on line that we stand to lose are very large.
What will it take, Justin, for all of this, and it's pretty serious right now, very depressing, as we all know, what will it take for this to turn around?
I think it's going to take Congress. The Constitution gives the power over tariffs, not to the president, but to Congress. Previous Congresses gave certain limited powers to the president. It's also possible the courts are going to stop this because it's quite plausible that the president has overstepped his authorities here. This is the largest tax increase in a generation, and it's occurring at the stroke of a pen of a man in the White House, not going through Congress at all. So Congress has the power to stop this, and I think they're seeing right now there's a whole lot of them who are not going to get reelected in 2 years' time, and they're not getting reelected around an issue that the Republican Party has traditionally hated, which is tariffs.
And taxes, too.
Yeah, exactly. Professor Justin Wolfers, thank you so much. Wolf.
Trade is also on the table when President Trump meets with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu later today over at the White House. The two were already expected to talk about the war in Gaza, the remaining hostages, and Iran and other issues, but trade certainly has become a significant item on their agenda as well after President Trump slapped Israel with a 17% tariff. Joining us now here in the Situation Room, CNN's chief national security correspondent, Alex Marquardt. Alex, Netanyahu was just here a few weeks ago, right? And now he's back. Give us a sense of what's going on.
Netanyahu was the first foreign leader to visit Trump when he went back into the White House, and now he is the first foreign leader to visit Trump following this tariffs news in an international effort to renegotiate trade deals between the U.S. and their respective countries. So, of course, the major agenda items that are classic for these two leaders, whether it's Gaza, Iran, Syria, will very much be on the table. But the tariffs news is very much adding a new dimension to this. The Israelis had tried to prevent being slapped with new tariffs by doing away with all duties on U.S. products just a couple of days before this announcement. It did not work. As you noted, 17% now being put on Israeli products. The Manufacturers Association of Israel says that anywhere between 18 to 26,000 Israeli jobs could be lost as a result. So that is going to be a major item that the two leaders are going to talk about. Of course, the ongoing war in Gaza, where Israel is expanding its operations, taking more territory, occupying more territory in the Gaza Strip. There are questions about whether a ceasefire can be resurrected. Of course, that was a big success early on in the Trump administration. Hamas had rejected an American proposal for what they called for an extension to that ceasefire. Now they're saying they're willing to go along with it. The Israelis are demanding more hostages be released. And so Steve Witkoff, the president's envoy, who's going to be in that meeting as well, is still trying to get that ceasefire back up and running. The main sticking point is Hamas is trying to end this war, and they're willing to give up all the remaining hostages. Israel wants those hostages, of course, but is not willing to end that war right now. One other thing to note, Wolf, 3 American teenagers, Palestinian American teenagers, were shot in the West Bank last night. One of them was killed. The IDF called them terrorists who hurled rocks towards the highway. So that could be another thing that is discussed today. Certainly those leaders will be asked about it. There are all kinds of things to talk about today. Tariffs, it appears, near the top, if not at the top of that list.
So they're going to hold a joint meeting, a bilateral meeting at the White House, and then have a joint news conference. Is that right?
This is the formula that we've seen with numerous other foreign leaders, where the two get together in the Oval Office. They take questions from the press. We saw that with President Zelensky. Of course, that one ended terribly. Then they go into a meeting, and that is then followed by a press conference with the two leaders.
We'll have coverage of all of that, to be sure. Alex, thank you.